Stuart, it's a weekend off with the semi-finals and the Scottish Cup there. What have you been doing with your players over these 2 weeks?
That was just very similar to what we've had when there's been breaks. There's been some real tough sessions in there in order for us to stay on top of things. But there's also been a couple of days break as well. I think it's important just to make sure that the players recharge the batteries, they refresh, they get to see a wee bit of their family, spend a wee bit of time with their family. So not anything groundbreaking from where we've been kind of across the entire season. I work very, very similar throughout that because I believe in a consistency, but as always those sessions are really important to us to ensure that we feel that we're coming into this game, one, fresh, but two, that we're at the kind of sharp end of what we can do as well in terms of performance, fitness levels, and I think always the important bit is that, and we'll probably touch on it in a minute or two, is the guys that have been injured, that we're topping up on their work as well and trying to get them closer. I don't want to waste any days or weeks with injured players. We want to try and make sure that our squad's as available as it can be, and that there is real kind of strength and depth, and we're competing for places in our side. So that's been the outlook over the last week or so, and as always I feel that the players are in a decent place. They're training well, but the gauge is always a game.
What is the injury situation in the players? Got any returning that went?
Yeah, but we're getting a lot closer. As I say, John Obika, we're getting a lot closer. Harry Payton, who's obviously been out since the kind of turn of the year, just after the turn of the year, is getting a lot closer. The guys are working really hard. Callum Slattery continues with his rehab, which we know is going to be a longer one, and then the one that was on top of that was Adam Devine, who is currently still at Rangers, but he's making pretty decent progress, and we hope to have Adam back hopefully within the next week or so back here, and again that would be a welcome addition to kind of that balance on either side that we have with Adam and what he's brought to us.
Starting the split this weekend, currently in 8th position, what's the aim for these next 5 games?
I was really categoric, I think, wasn't I, after the Hibs game, where I said that, you know, for me it's always what's the goal, what's there in front of you. We know that the top 6 is gone, and that's away, that's obvious. So the next part for us becomes, can we strive to finish top of the bottom 6? You know, that was what we done last year. I think we sat in the exact same points tally as what we have at this minute in time. So the task in hand is a difficult one, because we're competing with some really good clubs, some really good players, some big clubs certainly within that as well, but that has to be our aim, that has to be our goal moving forward. We would love to tell you it was something bigger and better. Every club will say that, everyone wants to be trying to push those boundaries, but for me that's what's there in front of us. We're within touch and distance of that, but you know, to achieve that last year, I think we had 4 wins and a draw, which is pretty decent form, and to do that we're going to have to be at our absolute best, because we've got a tough run of fixtures. I'm a big believer in play the games that are in front of you, but I think to have, you know, to be able to have to go to Pittodrie, Easter Road, and to go to Dingwall is possibly as tough as it can be in terms of those away fixtures.
Can we talk about Theo Bair, named in the Team of the Year? How pleased are you for him and the progress that he's made this season?
I'm delighted for him. I think I think you guys understand me, speaking to me for that long now. I'm just a huge believer in those success stories, not for my ego, not for him to pat me in the back, but for the individual and for the player. And I think when you've got to ride out such difficult moments as what Theo has done, not only here but at St Johnstone, and you know, try to make his way in Scottish football, in the top flight in Scottish football, then I just think it's testament to the man. I think it's testament to his character. I think it's been well spoken about that he's a kind of student of the game, that he really buys into the information and the detail that comes across. He buys into the work ethic of spending that time on the pitch to try and improve and learn his trade, and I just you know what, I think if you look at my past and my history, that a lot of time those are the players that I sort of gravitate to, you know, people that have started from a kind of lower rung in the ladder, if you like, and that there's been real doubt. And I think possibly with Theo, that might be the biggest change in people's opinion. There'll be a lot of people sitting now saying, I told you so, I knew he was going to be a good player. I can assure you that there was plenty of abuse probably towards him and to myself and to the coaching staff in the football club, and it's not, listen, it's never a prove you wrong, it's just when you've got a belief in something and you think think that somebody can reach the levels which he has done, but I need to go on record again and say that I don't think he's achieved anything, and I don't think he's done anything. What it is he's possibly changed a lot of people's perception of what he is as a player, but I think that there's lots and lots of quality still to come from, and I think there's a lot of development still to come from, and I think that can be the exciting thing. Again, not for me in the football club necessarily, but for him to continually show the type of quality he has, and you know what, it arguably is one of the biggest stories in my opinion in Scottish football. I think there's been a lot of players that have emerged in Scottish football this year, you know, one or two guys that you look at, like say Dundee for example, that have come up for the Championship and really cut their teeth in this division. You look at Theo Bair that's been here, there's a lot of success stories, and it's nice to see one or two, certainly one from our club, getting into that team of the year, because I think that that's the one that speaks volumes, because that's your peers, that's the guys that you play against and compete against every single weekend. To get the vote and the nod from these guys, I think is a pretty special achievement.
And can he become the recruitment advert for Motherwell, a success story like Theo?
Yeah, I'm mad on this because, again, just being brutally honest, we're not sitting there in a position where we're going to be able to blow anybody out the water in this league with what we can offer financially. But sometimes I think in terms of your recruitment, you need to look at the bigger picture. I think you need to look at a place, one, where you're given an opportunity, two, maybe where there's a plan and there's detail there that shows player development. Again, I apologise, I say the same thing every week about player development. I'm such a big believer in it, but I think I could probably throw a good number of names at you in that sense over the last year and a half or so, but so can the football club beyond that. You know, I make that sound as if it's only me, but I think Motherwell as a football club is a really good breeding ground for players to improve and get better, but also go in that wider landscape, that it's not just a Theo Bair, 24-year-old, that's had a tough spell. I think that when you look at guys like your Blair Spittles and your Kevin Van Veens and your Max Johnsons and Bair and Brodie Spencers, and you know, I could rhyme off an awful lot more. I'm pretty proud of that. You know, I'm pretty proud of that, and I think the football club should be proud of that. I think sometimes what we do is we really specify and we really look at the results. It's always the most important thing. There's no question about that. But for us to try and compete and to evolve, we need that player development. We need the recruitment to be right first and foremost, but we need the player development to be there. But that can be from a Kevin Van Veen at 32, it can be a Georgie Gent at 19, 20 years old, Bair 19 years old, you know, Max Johnston 19 years old. It can be all different ages. Blair Spittle kind of mid-later 20s. It can be in all different guises, and I think that that's the bit that we're proud of. But I think the other last point to make on it is that it's not always one size fits all. I think you need to understand the player, where they are in their career, and the potential of how far they can travel, and it's something that we spend an awful lot of time on, and hopefully we'll continue to do that, not just to improve the players, but to improve the football club.
Stuart, I know you have a lot of players out of contract and Theo's got another year, I think, but do you look to maybe try and persuade him to extend that just because he's become such a big player for you and an asset as well?
That's a good idea. I wish I'd thought of that one myself. No, listen, again, I keep saying the same thing. We're actively looking to try and make sure that we're as strong as we can be finishing the season, but I'm a massive believer in trying to make sure that we can get into the new season with a set group. That's challenging and difficult when you've got a lot of players out of contract, and I think quite clearly there'll be bits of interest in some of our players with the level that they've played at. Some have moved on in January because of that, and you know, again, we all know football, especially in this country, that will happen again. But what I always want to do and what I believe in is the work that happens here. If I can get a set a group for that first day in pre-season, people to hear and understand your message, we'll look to get a few days away in pre-season. And for me, that's the big sell. That's where we can really start to get that sort of tactical DNA, if you like, into the players, how we want to structure it and how we want to play. But I would always like to get that at the earliest opportunity. So again, I would assure people that we're working away at that as best we possibly can. There's been a big change at the football club obviously recently, bits of speculation about external investment and all these different types of things, new chief executive in, so we're kind of working tirelessly to make sure that we're ready to go for the new season. But what we have to do is keep our eye on this season and make sure that we finish as strong as we possibly can, because we've not achieved anything. You know, there are obvious pitfalls of going in bad runs at this stage of the season, so we're very mindful of that. We need to finish off what was started here just now, but all the while we're trying to prepare for the start of next season as well.
It's the going back to last season, you had, I can't remember when you were safe, it might even have been before the split, but you very early on you could then build on it, you can enjoy the last 4 or 5 games. Is that the key as well this time, to try and get this win on Saturday, and then you can maybe just, you know, build some momentum without having to look over your shoulder?
Yeah, I think it's just generally to amass as many points as we can. That was kind of what we set out last year. We speak about 4 wins and a draw, and to my mind it should have been 5 wins, sorry, I should say. One of those was a draw away to Livingston where they were down to 10 men and we were ahead in the game. So you know, you still look back on these types of things, but like everything else, I think once, if and when you can try and get that first win, it just starts to build confidence, build momentum, and I probably need to keep going back to it as well. I think that we've been on pretty good form since the turn of the year. No, you know, we were much maligned and criticised for a poor run, but I think since the turn of the year we've been incredibly competitive. We've started to amass points, we've started to pick up some big victories along the way, and then even our last outing, you know, when there was a 3-way fight essentially for a top 6 spot, and it looked as if we were kind of dead and buried in the game, we managed to salvage and to get ourselves a point. Could have won it in the end with almost the last kick of the ball. So I think that shows where our head's at. You know, no matter what the scenario is in the league, that we have a mindset to try and amass as many points as we can. Where does that start? Now 5 games to go. We want to try and win 5 games, but as we all know, that'll chop and change through the next 5 games. But as I say, hopefully we can try and get ourselves in a good run to finish the season and give the supporters something to be cheerful for.
Stuart, you haven't beat Aberdeen this season, unfortunately. Last time you were up at Pittodrie, it was free each and quite the game. What can you do differently this time?
No, I don't think we need to completely abandon any principles for our side of it. I've watched a fair bit of them. We've obviously played them recently. You know, there was in my mind the controversial game here, whereby it was a goal chalked off. Without going into too much detail, I think everybody knew my thoughts on that, and most people's thoughts on that. There was obviously an incident right towards the end of the game, last kick of the ball, where we felt there was a handball with Graham Shinney. So you know, that game was incredibly close. We got ourselves 3-0 ahead. That's possibly the bit that sticks in my throat more than anything. We got 3-0 ahead at Pittodrie and we were excellent, and then I felt that we probably started to go on the back foot and made one or two poor decisions from restarts in the game, which I highlighted at the time. So I think it's those marginal gains again. I think it's those minor adjustments more than a wholesale change in any kind of way. But I think what we need to be mindful of is we're playing against a good team. You know, you watch them against Celtic at the weekend. I thought they were excellent in spells. I thought they really got their game plan right. I thought they carried a threat, which we know they do. Again, with the investment and a lot of the forward thinking players that they have on their team, they've got some real quality. So it's not just a given that you walk up there and get a result. You have to make sure that you're at your best. But as I say, going back to it, it's just those marginal sort of tweaks for us that I think could make the difference.
Aberdeen are one of a few teams in the league that Motherwell haven't beat. Is that something that annoys you as a manager?
It's not something I sit staring at every day and thinking about every day, but of course you want to try and see if you can get the better of every single team, but that's nothing personal against Aberdeen. They want to beat us this weekend, we want to beat them, but again it always comes down to that factor of who performs and executes what they're trying to do as best they possibly can. It's the obvious answer, but it's the correct answer.
I think a few teams in the league would say that the break came at a good time for them to get that rest. Is that something you agree with? No,
I didn't feel that we were on our knees at that point. But again, it was a break. If you do better in the cup competition, you've got a game. You know, simple as that. From my side of things, it's I thought we were in a good place physically going into the game against Hibs. So it was a break. We tried to utilise it. But I didn't think we were screaming out for it. There's been 1 or 2 occasions this season where the breaks came, I felt, at a good time because we were short in numbers, but that last one wasn't the case.